Well, friends, I'm set up to do a larger version of the painting of the waterfall, and I'm set up on my kitchen counter, which is a good height to work, but not easy to get my camera figured out. But I'm going to be painting a larger version of this painting, and there is a video on YouTube about my painting this, which is called Alexandria's Waterfall. Title of the video is Watercolor Sketching, Artist at Work. But for now, I have the camera tilted so that you can see the beginning of my working. I've done a little, first of all, a pencil sketch, and then I've come in with my watercolor just to kind of block it out and help me get everything organized in my head, if nothing else. But I will be painting over this with my acrylic paint. At this point in my preparation, I decided that I did not like painting on this watercolor paper, and it took me a few minutes to realize that before I can do an effective painting on a watercolor sheet outside of watercolors themselves, I had to cover it in gesso. So I gave up on this after a little while, so I didn't want to waste any more of your time watching my doing something that I was going to be eliminating. So stick with me. I think this painting is turning out very well on canvas. Well, as you may realize by now, I've started with a new canvas. I decided to leave the other portion of this video on here just to kind of give you an idea what you have to do when the things that you're doing aren't working. So what I did was I just removed that watercolor paper. I put it on another counter. I have covered it with gesso. That is, covered the whole surface. And I'm going to be starting over again with probably another painting. I have some other waterfall paintings that I want to experiment with, so that'll be a good surface for that kind of thing. Now, in case you're not aware of how to preserve your acrylic paint, I was using this paint yesterday, but I decided that I wanted to keep it. Not that I don't have plenty more paint, but I sprayed it with water for just the overnight. I just turned my plate, another plate, upside down and put it in the refrigerator overnight. So everything looks like it might still be usable, at least. So I'm going with that. Now I have my camera tilted so that you can see the work up here as I do my sky, and hopefully the surface is going to be better. It has a couple of coats of gesso on it, but it's canvas, so it's not going to have the same issues that I had with the watercolor paper. But I'm going to be about my business here, and thank you for joining me again. And hopefully I'm going to have better success with this. Now, I have done a very brief pencil sketch just to keep me grounded as to where I'm supposed to go and what I'm supposed to be doing. sometimes trying to stay true to a photograph creates some problems right off the bat. And one of the issues I've had with the trees up above and at the top of this mountain is that they were just too green. I have managed to gray them down somewhat, but for the distance that the trees appear in this photograph, they should be much more grayed or blued. But eventually it all kind of works out, and there were a lot of structural decisions that I had to make, and I think for the most part they turned out okay. Well, I am sorry to say that I realized when I was working on downloading my video, or uploading it, whichever you want to call it, I realized that I wasn't actually recording when I was painting this area. Now this area is the side of the mountain, and the one thing I was saying and showing, in fact, was that because the side of the mountain has so many cracks and crevices, some highlights and some very dark areas, that this was going to be my underpainting. But in spite of the fact that it was underpainting, I was using my brush to make various marks that in fact would be areas that could be dry washed and areas that would provide some texture in addition to an underpainting for the side of the mountain. So that's where I'm going with this. I'm going to continue with the mountain colors and hope that this part of the recording will actually record. I'm wetting down my paint now. I've left it for a couple of hours, so that's the way you can revive it, as long as there's some color to it. Okay, I'm thinking that my brush may have too much water in it. And I'm painting over the area where the waterfall will be, because I need that contrast behind it. One thing that I do not like about acrylic paint is that it dries rather flat and sometimes can have a very plastic feel to it. And by plastic, I think I mean stiff. And since I think that paintings actually are living things, I don't want them to be dead right off the starting line for sure. And I think I discovered when the recorder wasn't going that there was an area in the photograph that had some white peeking through. And I discovered on closer inspection that that's where water is coming rushing from another space and down the side of the mountain. And of course that's where the white came from. And so I'm painting this a darker color for the contrast when I get ready to do the actual waterfall. Now the one thing that I need to remember as I'm doing that, I want my paint strokes to be in exactly the same direction. So that when I brush the white over it, the paint strokes will give some dimension. And I know there's an area where this water hits a rock and then comes on down. Okay, I'm going to be switching brushes today. This is a bristle brush, and let me see if I have something that's a little more worn out. Actually, this one's pretty worn out. What you really want to do in this case is to have something that will have some rough, jagged edges. And this one is sort of broken off in some places. So let's just see how that works on this. One of the problems with acrylics, which I've mentioned before, is that it dries light, so you're not always sure when you're putting it down whether it's going to be that same color when you go back to it. And I have let this dry completely. And this is probably why I'm going to have to come back over it at some point. With a detail brush and make some of these cracks a little bit more prominent, in addition to some of the highlight areas. Otherwise, this painting could just go on forever and ever and ever. There are all kinds of cracks that create highlight areas and darker areas in the side of this mountain. And since, as I've said before, no one's going to be holding this photograph up in front of my painting to see if it's exactly right, and therefore it's not going to be exactly right anyway. But in this session, I'm just going to go right on through and do some. This is a good time for me to interject something that I think about a lot in terms of the way, the method that artists approach their painting. Some of them are very abstract, and I do abstract myself, so I understand how that goes. And some are more detailed than others, and some have a more impressionistic style. And the one thing that I think is most important, whether you're impressionistic or representational toward the very detailed side of things, is that you paint what you see. Rules in art are good for foundations, but by and large, I think it's an individual concept, and individual not only from the artist's ability to make something happen that is more technical, but it has to do with following your own spirit and doing that by learning to be observant. Observant about your landscape if you're doing plein air, or if you're following from a photograph, which I do often. But no matter what you're doing, learning to see is a very important aspect of painting. What I'm doing here is providing some contrast before I actually paint my waterfall coming down. Today I'm going to be doing some finishing work, and I'm going to mostly be working with my my palette knives, especially on these trees, because they're so thin. I think I can do a better job of applying the paint with my palette knives. So I'll be using those, and I'm going to be using my liner brushes, and this one is an especially good liner brush. It is a Master's Touch, which is the Hobby Lobby brand of art supplies, and there's some other skinny ones which really don't hold much paint, so they're not always good for most things. So I'm going to be about my business today, and I'm going to be using my trusty plates. A beautiful mixture when you need a dark color is alizarin crimson, Prussian blue, and some viridian green. And it's best if you don't just mix them up a lot. I'm also going to be using some burnt sienna. This tube has not been opened. Burnt umber, let's try that. I decided when I thought I was finished with this waterfall that it was much too stiff, so I have used my liner brush to just lay down some textured white paint to give it a little bit more life. Well, friends, I've continued to work on this painting a little bit, and I did not have the occasion to videotape the very last little bits, but I can assure you I did a lot of dibs and dabs on this little painting to finish it up, and I'm pretty well satisfied with it. The problem that I found in the end is that it does not photograph very well. because of the contrast between the very dark and the very white aspects. But it looks great hanging on the wall, so that's what the end result should be, and that is it should look good wherever it is, except on the photograph. However, I did use a lot of my liner brush and my frayed bristle brushes to make the final little highlight areas. One thing I realized after looking at the painting the last time I worked on it was that the water was entirely too straight coming down. And while it definitely does come down straight, when you look at it in the original photograph, it actually has a lot more texture. You may recall, if you've been with me from the beginning of this video, that this is the watercolor sketch that I did of this photograph, and in some ways it turned out better than the acrylic painting that I did on canvas. However, they're two very different mediums, and so it's just a matter of personal choice. And I will be matting and framing both of these pieces for my show, which will be in November 2021, which is coming up before I realize it. But I want to thank you for checking into my channel. I thank you for watching and visiting. I hope you will like, comment, share, and certainly subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the little bell, which will indicate when I am posting other videos. And so I hope this has been somewhat of a learning experience, and I hope you'll come back to my channel. And thank you again for watching. I do have a website where you can see my paintings, and that is at dellbelew.com. Please come and visit.